Welcome everyone to Labs Weekly number 8. With us today we have Sarah, Dan, Adam, and Kenny. We're going to talk a little bit today about something that's pretty near and dear to a lot of folks' hearts with the COVID-19 issue and lots of jobs being basically lost, furloughed, laid off, all that stuff. And even in the technology sector, and it's actually been hit really, really hard, especially in the VC-backed type startups. So today we want to talk about a couple of things. One, Adam's going to walk through creating a good resume with some pretty neat scripting and tooling that he's put together over the years. I know when he applied here, his resume was very polished, and he created some scripting and such to create that. And then we'll also talk about finding those jobs because they're out there. It's just sometimes may feel daunting to find the right job for you, especially in times like now. So I'm going to hand it off to Adam, and he'll kind of start talking about his little resume builder, and we'll go from there.
Thanks, David. I'll go ahead and share my screen. I'm about 3 or 4 years into my build. Can you all see my screen now? Great. So 3 or 4 years ago, I was still using Microsoft Word to create my resumes, and I was absolutely hating it because anytime I had to adjust anything, I had to turn on their grid lines and move everything minutely one way or the other. It was tough to have a really good resume design. And I said, you know what? Heck with this. I'm going to do the entire thing in code, because in code, I can at least say, I want everything to line up on this pixel. I want everything to be exactly this size. And I can start making components. So I can make components that I can reuse over and over again. So I went ahead and I built out a resume in code. This is this resume right here. So this is kind of what a polished design might look like whenever you get to that stage. But today I'm going to talk about how to make a resume out of code and what it entails. So there's a lot of cool things you can do with this. First, it helps demonstrate some of your technology skills, especially if you're applying for an engineering position. It's a good way then also if you want to, you can Dockerize it and host it, so you can show off that you have some DevOps chops as well. GitHub allows you to host static pages for free through GitHub Pages. So you can actually open source it and stick it on GitHub and then host it, host your resume and point people to it. Lastly, I know a lot of people will say, but Adam, websites are notoriously difficult to print. What happens if I have to print this resume? How do I manage that? And we're going to cover that today and just kind of how that works out. So the technologies that I'm using something called Create React App, which if you're familiar with React, you've probably used this before. It's a very simple starter template for creating a React app. If you're not familiar with it, go ahead and check out the link that we're going to paste in the description of this video. It's going to link you to our Labs Weekly GitHub, and I kind of walk you through how to start this project yourself. The starter code will already be there. But I created a React application, and then from there, I built out some components, which we can go ahead and talk about. Basically, how I wanted to emulate this was I wanted a sidebar, a footer, which I left the footer white right now, but there's a footer here, and then there's a main section. So this is what we're going to be discussing. I brought in iconography. I don't know. I brought in the icons from Font Awesome for these type of icons right here. And then I went ahead and just styled some stuff based off of my current resume. Obviously, anyone can change the style that you want. So what that looks like here is, like I said, I built out this app, and inside of here you have a content area and you have a main section, and which is, let's see if I can do this, which is this main section right here. And then I built out a sidebar, and then lastly, the footer right here. And the footer is where I usually put stuff like contact information. So that's you know, a good template for your design here. And this is going to be open source, so feel free to come grab it. I went ahead and created these components. This is called a big heading right here. You can see if I make another big heading, what it would look like. Let's title this one Awards and Honors and Awards. So, and save it, and you can see then it'll populate in here. Oh, I gotta rerun this. So, the command to run is just npm run start, pretty easy. And as you can see then, creating a big header will just populate in here, just like that. That's a big header. And then these are called numbered headers. And the components are all under this component folder here. And the numbered headings, each item is called a sub-item. So everything's contained in their own little folders with their own styled properties and everything. So it's pretty self-explanatory once you spin it up. The numbered headings, something that I did that I thought was pretty nice was I actually built out JSON that you can add to. This is really handy because when you start a new job or when you accomplish a new thing and you want to add it to your resume, instead, like I said in Microsoft Word, instead of trying to figure out where to add it and move everything and adjust accordingly, it's super easy to just highlight this, copy, paste, and say that you also worked at a new place, save it, and then it'll regenerate. Boom, there it is. It just regenerated a fourth one, and you can generate a fifth one. It's super easy too. And just save it, and boom, there's another fifth one. So what's really nice about this is everything is styled the same. So you'll have a consistency throughout your resume. The sidebar, I've left pretty blank right now. I just added this little name header up here. So this is, again, just a way to kind of let you hit the ground running. Some of the more interesting stuff is I'm using Sass. So I've created variables where you can, change colors pretty easily. I have a bunch of different color options for you if you want to go through and select any of them. And then you just rename them and it changes the sidebar background, the main color, and the alternate color. The alternate colors are these circles, and these are the main colors. You'll also notice that spacing is appropriated here. This is measured out to exactly a US style 8.5 by 11 piece of paper. What's nice about this is I've made that the print area here. So if I go to Chrome and I just say print, it will print the entire page perfectly. Again, the footer is still white, but that's the footer right there. And it'll fit that entire thing perfectly. You have to make sure that background graphics are checked, but you can save this to a PDF and mail it to a recruiter in seconds. It's super easy. And it's not trying to select the entire page because you've limited the scope of the page to the exact piece of paper that you'd want to replicate. With that, I'm not going to really touch on to how, like, what makes a good resume. Maybe David or Dan or Sarah have comments on that, but this is a good way to kind of set yourself up for success. And I encourage you to check out our GitHub repo or ask us questions.
That's awesome, Adam. I definitely think like a dynamic resume is a great way to show off technical skills, design skills, and stuff like that. So this is really cool. Personally, I'm the complete opposite and do like the bare minimum, like simple Google Doc with bullets and headers and stuff, just because that works for me. But I've seen some awesome styled resumes, especially for people that do UX and UI. It'd be cool to, you know, write your own stuff and share the code and during an interview and say, hey, you know, I built this, which is what you're looking at right now. And that's pretty neat. In terms of kind of my tips for what goes into resume content, I personally like to go very heavy with skills and achievements and stuff like that up front. So less on and hold kind of the work experience and certifications and that type of stuff until the end. My strategy tends to be kind of categorizing different projects and things that you've worked on and really kind of dig deep, right? Like think about all of the places that you've worked before, what type of achievements you've had in those jobs, and how do those kind of bubble up to round out your overall bucket of skills. And it's cool to call out specific projects that you can, to prompt in interviews and to prompt people that are reading the resume to think about, oh, that's kind of neat, or I bet that was a challenging project, or you know, or that was interesting. Some of you all may not have the work experience, and I think there's ways that you can still be creative, even if you know haven't had a ton of jobs in tech. You know, I certainly recommend people looking at open source projects to try and get involved. Even your home hobby tinker projects are great to call out, because that's still skill building and stuff that you can talk about in an interview. But I also think it's important to, you know, think about if there's cool, neat personal stuff that may not even be related to the job, that's like just neat skills. You can get really creative. I've seen people put like that they ran a WoW guild with thousands of people in it. And that's, I don't know, non-trivial, but you like, I think you can get kind of interesting in terms of the stuff that you fill out to say, hey, here's, you know, here's why I'm an interesting and skilled person. And that to me makes a good resume and a noticeable resume.
Yeah, I mean, being a hiring manager for, oh, well, it seems like forever now. You know, I definitely look for certain types of thing, and I think I tend to agree with Dan a little bit on, you know, putting the things that really matter first. You know, really drawing my attention to, you know, the technical expertise. I mean, sometimes that is your jobs, right? It depends on what you've done in your career and whatever else. The one thing that, you know, that I, you know, early on, like going through school, you know, we all took like the resume building classes and things like that, and it was like, oh, make sure it's on a page. I'm not sure I agree with that anymore when it comes to very specific skilled positions, you know, in security and cybersecurity, and, you know, to prove out some of the things and lay out some of the things that you've been a part of, because the skill set is so unique and there's so few in the industry. It's really good to see kind of all of your highlights, instead of just like, oh, here's just the tip of the few things that I've done in my career, right? So maybe it's 2 pages, maybe it's a little more. But, you know, when I'm hiring and I get applications in, I'm not getting hundreds, I'm not getting thousands, right? I'm getting 5, 10, 20, because it's a really hard skill set to find people for, right? So know the job you're applying for and understand that sometimes more is better and sometimes less might be better. But I definitely agree with, put the things that matter first, tailor it to that specific role you're applying to. I really liked Adam's approach, because number one, he laid it out in a very organized fashion. It was very easy. The flow was great, and it was available online. And I actually think you even might have linked to the open source version of how you generated it, which I thought was really neat, right? Like it all kind of flowed right into, he knows technology, he gets how this stuff works, and allowed us to, dig into more of the security side of things that he's done. So I think, resume building is important. It's what gets your foot in the door. Even in this weird era where we've got all sorts of people that have been laid off and let go and whatever else, and some very high profile names, in the security industry, they're still submitting resumes, right? Like they're not just getting job offers sent to them. They're still got to put together something to at least, number one, keep up with what HR requires, right? and number two, like, is your presence only Twitter? We should probably still dig in a little further.
Yeah, multiple pages is fine, to be honest. Like the one page thing doesn't really fly if you're trying to dig into your skills, but you got to treat that like privileged real estate. Every word you choose is incredibly important. Everything you put in there, you got to decide if it makes the cut. And if you're trying to pad and fill and add stuff, maybe like you're not going to have that problem. But if you're putting extra words in there, make sure they're meaningful. I don't like looking at paragraphs on resumes personally. Like, and I hate to say it, if I see a paragraph on a resume, I'm probably gonna like look for a couple of keywords, and then I'm just gonna ask in the interview, based on other things on the page. People don't want to read novels. You got to make stuff pop out, which is why I stick with very highly prioritized bullets of, I did this thing, and they roll up to categories. I did this other thing. That way, it's at a glance you can see, okay, cool. This is where this person kind of sits, and these are things I can ask them about.
Yeah, that's one of the reasons why I did mine in code. Actually, is privileged real estate, like you talked about, Dan. It's so much easier in CSS to be able to move something together or make font size 8 pixels, easier, and even to make unimportant text like paragraphs or more descriptive wording, like gray versus a big black bold header for the job title kind of thing. I totally agree. It's a big deal to kind of keep the focus on accomplishments, but yeah, if it's privileged real estate, I think writing it in code is really beneficial in my mind.
Yeah, I mean, things as simple as spell check, right? Like I've seen so many resumes with misspellings and all of that, and that as a hiring manager, that gets you just thinking a little bit, right? Like, are they paying enough attention? There's 1,000 spell check tools, right? Just simple things that you may not be thinking of while you're trying to put this, this is me on a piece of paper, right? But it is important to hiring managers to show that you care and show that, you take the time to make sure you're doing it right. So resumes are important. It's your first impression, if you don't already know someone, and that kind of starts tying into, well, okay, I lost my job, or I don't have a job, or I'm looking for a job. How do I find one? Right? How do I find a job in cybersecurity right now, especially right now? Well, believe it or not, there's still a lot of organizations hiring. And with more and more people on the market, they're probably able to, decide on a few more people versus we had 2 people apply for this job, which one's better, right? So it's even more important to be as sharp as you can with that first impression resume. Or, if you've worked for years and years and years, you've built out a network of folks. And that network of folks probably either one is hiring or knows someone hiring, right? or they can get you in contact with someone who's hiring. That's for me. That's how I'm typically, the jobs that I've had the last 15 years were all through either someone I directly met at a networking event, or someone in the industry, or someone through someone I met, within my network. And I was able to apply and whatever else. So for me, if and when I should ever choose to move on and find something else, my network is the first place that I would look to. Hey, who's hiring? Who's working at a cool place? Something that interests me, right? Don't just settle because you don't have a job, unless financially it's something you really have to do right now, because you still have choices.
If you're blindly submitting to online job posts or through HR departments and stuff, you're already shooting yourself in the foot. Like you got to use a network, and if you're applying for engineering technical jobs, you got to go through engineers. In my opinion, you're going to greatly increase your odds of getting a call back and getting a good opportunity, a good qualified opportunity. And there's a lot of ways to do that if you don't have a network already. One of the best sources for infosec and tech jobs and stuff is the quarterly hiring thread on Hacker News. So that's a great place to start, and to just message people. And those are engineers 9 times out of 10. They're not, HR job postings, the recruiters and stuff like that. Those are actual people in the departments that you might be working with, and blind reaching out to people on Hacker News or on LinkedIn, even at companies that you're interested in, can be very successful. And a lot of those folks that are out there are super happy to field questions if you make a good introduction, and they're happy to refer you. A lot of people, if you haven't been in the tech industry for a while, you don't know, a lot of engineers get referral bonuses just for passing your resume along to their HR department. A lot of people don't, but either way, I'm not saying people do it purely out of their own benefit. I think that most people want to see other people succeed. And if anything, they're going to give you some feedback on, whether you may or may not be a good fit, or what the culture and environment is like. And they may even refer you someplace else if they don't have opportunities. So I think that's absolutely what you have to do. Going through LinkedIn or Twitter, Slack groups, and Hacker News to find engineers at the companies you want to work at to talk to and make introductions.
Yeah, Dan mentioned not if you didn't have a network. I was going to say, and you touched on it. There's there's like usually local Slack groups or local meetups that you can look to reach out or join, or Discord channels. I know I got this job just randomly through a Slack group that I joined to promote KernelCon, and I saw David posting a job and reached out to him and connected with David, and that's how I ended up, even finding out about this opening. So there's definitely, like Dan said, there's definitely ways if you don't have a network yet, or if you don't have an established network, to reach out. One of the ways I see most commonly is Twitter, right? Information security is pretty popular on Twitter, and if you post that you're looking for a job and get a couple retweets, it can really reach a widespread audience. So I echo Dan's sentiments.
Yeah, I'll say all of the, I guess, job interviews I'd consider good last year when I was searching were through these other mediums. Like most of the, just whatever you want to call it, dry resumes I sent out didn't really get anywhere. And I even almost didn't get hired here because I was going through HR or a hiring manager, recruiter, whatever it was.
Yeah, I think using some of those other mediums is definitely important. And Reddit, surprisingly or unsurprisingly to some, has been another one that a lot of people have used over the years. I know one of the guys I've worked with numerous times We had initially found him through a Reddit post years and years ago. So, find the non-traditional ways. Talk with people, as Dan said. Like, we're a very open and welcoming community for the most part. There's always going to be there's a few of those narcissistic, arrogant type personalities in InfoSec for sure. But for the most part, the community is very opening, and it's not hard to strike up a conversation with someone and show genuine interest in, learning about what they're doing, if they have any openings, what sort of organization they're working for. We're all more than happy to share that info. Awesome. Sarah, did you have anything?
Yeah, I was just going to touch on like general tips on the resume. It's something I struggled with just starting my career. If you don't volunteer information, no one will ever know, or pick up, or someone draws out an interview, no one will ever pick up on it. So it's not the time to be modest. Just put it down there as concise as you can. Just put your best foot forward. And maintain as you go, I think, even if you're happy in your job, because you will forget everything.
Oh gosh, yes. And someone like me, that's really good. The modest part, right? Like, some of us it's really hard for us to sell ourselves, right?
Yeah.
But you just have to. You have to, not in an arrogant way, but sell yourself. I mean, you're selling yourself. But yes, the maintenance of your resume, always keep that up to date, regardless. Like this COVID-19 thing, right? There's been some amazing people let go. People who may have been at a job for years, and were never imagining in a million years that they'd be let go, right? And now they're pretty much starting from, oh shit, I haven't updated my resume for 4, 5, 6 years. And that you have to go back, and it takes a lot of work, and that's why, Adam's coding makes a lot of sense, right? Because it's really easy to update or add some more experience to that, on an ongoing basis. And I think, for him, I think you even have it online all the time, right? It's just there for your own personal brand, which is also important, right?
Also, zero OPSEC.
Yeah, right. Cool. Awesome. Anyone, any parting thoughts before we call it a Labs Weekly number 8? Awesome. Well, thanks everyone for joining us today. Hopefully this has been helpful. Feel free to reach to us at Twitter, or however it'll be down in the comments. But thanks for joining us. See you later.
The 0-day heap will spray, clear the way. If their log file touch, get your hard line cut. Number 2, never let them know your next move. Don't you know bad boys moving silence and pirate taken from your wireless? I done flashed mad chips with these hacks just to patch these bits. Number 3, never trust nobody. IRC is bad.